When mapping a bike route today, the algorithm prioritizes three things: the shortest ETA, the flattest elevation, and the presence of bike lanes. We've handed our route planning over to these tools, and while they are highly effective at moving a human from point A to point B quickly, they completely ignore what your lungs and body absorb along the way. Because the math only cares about time, it will gladly send you down a heavy freight corridor to save 45 seconds. You end up riding directly beside multi-lane taxi and truck traffic, inhaling highly concentrated invisible pollutants for the duration of your trip. This compares two routing models. On the left is legacy routing, which calculates ETA, elevation, and infrastructure. On the right is next-generation exposure-aware routing. It still calculates ETA, but adds the physiological cost of PM 2.5 particles, nitrogen dioxide, heat, and noise. Optimizing urban navigation strictly for speed leaves out half the equation. The next step is routing that accounts for human exposure. We now have the ability to measure this. Urban mobility firms are deploying street-level sensors that track environmental hazards block by block. That local data presents a clear choice. If your phone shows you an invisible hazard on your usual route, do you actually change your path to avoid it? Dropping your exposure to particulate matter and extreme heat usually means deviating from the direct arterial road. It means selecting a path that takes longer. Think of this as the 3-minute health tax. You trade a slight penalty in immediate transit time for a massive reduction in physiological wear and tear. You don't have to overhaul your entire commute. You make a small micro trade-off at the exact moment you map your ride. Before heading out, many riders check the air quality index on their weather app. If the number is green, they assume the air they breathe on their commute is safe. But that standard AQI reading is a macro, 10,000-foot average of the entire city. It tells you almost nothing about the specific air quality at street level. This diagram compares two views of the same city. The map on the left shows a uniform green rating based on citywide averages. The map on the right displays street-level particulate data. Notice the severe red spikes isolated along heavy intersections. A highly localized diesel plume trapped between tall city buildings won't show up on a citywide weather app. Broad environmental data usually only reflects reality during massive, region-wide events like severe wildfires. Relying on a generalized AQI creates a false sense of security. To manage your actual exposure, you need measurements from the exact streets you plan to travel. We can measure the exact return on investment of taking a slower, quieter street. This chart plots exposure reduction, or health ROI, against the time and distance penalty of your route. Down here in the bottom left is the default choice, the direct arterial path. You suffer 0 time penalty, but you gain 0 health protection. In the top right is the extreme alternative, like a major park or greenway detour. The air quality is excellent, but the time penalty is too high to be practical for a daily commuter. The optimal choice sits here in the top left. This is the parallel side street, usually just a block or two away from the main traffic artery. By electing to ride on that parallel street, you reduce accumulated exposure to primary pollutants like nitrogen oxide and carbon monoxide by 30%. Routing algorithms can target streets with shade canopies and wind tunnels, which can lower ambient ride temperatures by up to 2.1 degrees Celsius. And there is a major variable that makes these detours even easier to tolerate: the rapid adoption of e-bikes. Healthier routes occasionally require covering longer distances or climbing steeper hills, but the electric motor flattens the physical effort required to overcome them. Electric assist absorbs the sweat and effort penalty of the side street. It turns exposure optimization into a near-zero friction choice. This matrix applies exposure data to 3 rider profiles. For the fast commuter, stick to traditional ETA routing. For the health-conscious rider, accept the 3-minute tax and prioritize side streets. For couriers, use alerts defensively to route around localized hazards. Health routing scales to fit your schedule and your personal risk tolerance. Historically, cycling through a city was strictly an exercise in surviving traffic and reaching your destination as fast as possible. The next iteration of urban mobility focuses on arriving without being physically degraded by the environment you rode through. Algorithms will always calculate the shortest, fastest line. As a rider, you have to decide what that line actually costs your body. On every single commute, you are forced to spend something. You just have to choose whether you are willing to spend a little extra of your time or a little more of your lungs.